He was just another millionaire on his way to a business flight, until he saw a woman from his past, holding two boys who looked exactly like him. The airport was alive with its usual rhythm. Somewhere, tourists with bright suitcases laughed loudly. On the other side, a couple argued in a rush. And above it all, the flight announcements echoed through the terminal. The air was filled with the smell of coffee, pastries, and a faint trace of engine oil from the service carts. In the middle of this noise and motion walked Ethan Cole, calm, confident, detached. His suit fit perfectly. A luxury watch gleamed under the overhead lights, and a leather briefcase swung lightly from his hand. He was the kind of man who always knew his worth, the kind who believed the world moved around him. Crowds never interested him. People were just faces passing by, part of the background. Ethan was heading toward the VIP lounge, where his assistant waited with papers, when something made him stop. By the huge airport window sat a woman. She held a small old suitcase covered with worn-out travel stickers. Beside her were two little boys, maybe 5 or 6 years old. One played with a stuffed bear. The other stared at the planes taking off. Nothing about them seemed unusual. But Ethan froze. Her face, it was familiar. He stared a moment longer and something inside him twisted. It was Claire, the same Claire who had once worked for him, as a janitor in his company. He hadn't seen her since the day she disappeared, and honestly, he hadn't thought of her at all. Back then, she had just been part of the background, like everyone else who quietly kept his perfect world running. But now, in this crowded airport, he couldn't look away. She looked different. Her hair pulled into a simple braid, her face thinner, older, but calmer. There was tiredness in her eyes, and strength. She held her children close, as if afraid to lose them. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something stir inside him. A strange unease, a heartbeat he couldn't control. He remembered flashes. Claire cleaning the hallway floors, her quick, quiet glance, the tension in her posture when he passed by and said nothing. Before he knew it, he was walking toward her. The noise of the terminal faded. The world narrowed down to the woman and her 2 children by the window. Claire? Her name barely left his lips. She looked up, startled. For a moment her eyes widened, then filled with disbelief, and something else. Fear. "Mr. Cole," she whispered. The boys looked up at Ethan again. Their wide eyes were filled with both curiosity and caution. He realized he couldn't look away. The crowd kept moving, people rushing to their gates, children laughing, someone shouting into a phone. But for Ethan, the noise faded into silence. He stood face to face with a woman from his past. A woman now holding the hands of 2 little boys. And somehow he knew this moment would change everything. He could have turned around, walked to the VIP lounge, and left her in the past forever. But something deep inside him shifted. A feeling that if he walked away now, he would lose something he could never buy back. Something money and power could never replace. Claire glanced away. Then she stood up, took her sons by the hands, and began walking toward her gate. Her steps were calm, but there was strength in every movement. Ethan watched her go and felt control slipping through his fingers for the first time in years. He took 1 step forward, then another. 2 forces battled inside him. The disciplined man who lived by order and reason, and the man who suddenly wanted to follow her. to understand. To know why now, after all these years, their paths had crossed again. The boarding call for his flight echoed once more. But Ethan didn't move. He knew one thing for certain. If he let her go now, he would lose his only real chance. He watched her walk through the terminal with the twins, and panic, an emotion he had long forgotten, rose in his chest. He was a millionaire, a man of influence, the owner of a powerful company. But for the first time in his life, he realized that money couldn't give him what he was about to lose. He moved quickly. People turned their heads as he pushed through the crowd. Someone grumbled when he passed the line, but he didn't hear. He caught up to Claire just as she reached the boarding gate. He touched her shoulder gently. "Wait." His voice was firmer than he expected. Claire stopped. The boys looked at him confused, pressing closer to their mother. She sighed. There was exhaustion in her eyes, and something else. Resignation. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, "you have your own life." Why stop now? He took a step closer, his tone softened. "Because I can't just walk away. I need to understand. I need the truth." She hesitated. People moved past them toward the gate, voices echoing through the terminal. But for them, time had paused. "All right," she said finally. "The boys are tired. Let's at least sit down." They walked to the nearest cafe. It smelled of coffee and cinnamon rolls. The warm light softened the noise of the airport. The twins sat at the table, distracted by juice cups and pastries their mother had brought. Their little fingers wrapped around the mugs carefully. They whispered to each other and giggled quietly. Ethan watched them, and something inside his chest tightened painfully. "Claire," he began, leaning back in his chair, "tell me honestly, who's their father?" She froze. For a few seconds, she didn't move, just breathed. Then her eyes met his. "You, Ethan." 2 words, simple, quiet. But they hit harder than any truth he had ever known. Something inside him shattered and turned upside down. Ethan looked at her, then at the boys. And the longer he watched, the clearer it became. The resemblance was undeniable. The shape of their chin, the eyes, even the way they squinted when concentrating on their food. It was all him. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice trembled. Claire lowered her eyes. "Because I was scared," she said quietly. "When I found out, I was no one. Just a cleaner with no future, no support. I knew what kind of man you were, and I thought it would only cause problems for you. So I decided to handle it on my own." She paused, brushing a hand gently through her son's hair. "It was hard. Sometimes we had nothing to eat, sometimes nowhere to sleep. But I held on, for them. And you know what? I don't regret a thing." Ethan listened, feeling a heavy ache rise in his chest. He had always believed he controlled his destiny. But now he realized 5 years of his life had passed without him even seeing the most important moments. He hadn't seen their first steps, hadn't heard their first words, hadn't held them when they were sick. "Claire," he whispered. "I didn't let you know," she replied softly. "I didn't want your money or your help. I wanted to prove that I could be strong. For them." Ethan looked at the boys. They had finished their pastries and were now drawing airplanes on napkins with crayons their mother had pulled from her bag. They were happy, lost in their little world, unaware of the words that had just changed everything. He reached out, gently touching one of the napkins. "That's beautiful," he said. The boy looked up and smiled at him. A smile so familiar it made Ethan's heart twist. "Claire," he said quietly, "please, let me be part of their lives. I don't want to lose any more time. I want to know them, to be there." She studied him, her expression unreadable. "Are you sure?" she asked. "This isn't something you can walk away from. They've learned to live without a father. If you enter their lives, you stay. No empty promises." He nodded, his eyes steady. "I will stay," he said. "That's a promise." The boys looked at him again, curiosity flickering in their eyes. They didn't yet understand who stood before them. But time would reveal the truth. Later, when they stepped out of the cafe, the sound of the airport returned. Announcements echoing, travelers rushing, life moving on around them. But for Ethan, everything had changed. He no longer felt like a lonely man in a crowd. Beside him walked Claire and the two boys, his sons. It was the beginning of a new life. He knew there would be challenges ahead, earning their trust, proving he wasn't just a rich man appearing out of nowhere, winning Claire's heart again. But for the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel fear for the future, only gratitude, and the quiet joy for having someone to live for. When the twins laughed, arguing over whose drawing looked more like a real airplane, Ethan smiled. The world had changed. His life, his heart, now belonged to this woman and the two little boys he had met by chance in a crowded airport. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were in Ethan's place? And don't go far. A brand new story is coming tomorrow. Stay tuned. And remember, sometimes life gives us a second chance when we least expect it.